Whenever it comes to HardOps and hotkeys, you can always click on the Hops button, and from here on the drop down choose the Q icon, and here we can see a listing of all the hotkeys available inside of HardOps. However, the one that we're going to focus on is Alt-X for the interactive mirror. With our cube selected, if we press Alt-X, it will bring up the mirror tool, and we see that symmetry is one of our options. However, we can always click on the drop down up top and change it to our default modifier, or go to modifier and apply, which basically uses a modifier and it applies it immediately. But today we'll be talking about symmetry, which is the one that we'll be focusing on. However, before that, let's right click and cancel in order to give ourselves something to actually talk about. So I'm just going to tab into edit mode, and we're just going to make some mesh changes where I'm just going to grab an edge, bevel it, grab another edge, bevel it as well, just so we have some difference happening with this mesh. And then in object mode, I will press Shift D and duplicate this up above. Tab into edit mode, select everything, and just press Control M for Blender's internal kind of mirroring tool. And we can press Y in order to mirror this object on itself. So we'll just move it over a little bit just so it's back to being centered. And we have these two different objects we can deal with. And so the purpose of this is actually to discuss symmetry and its behavior with object selection. So I'm just going to select each of these objects and then hold Shift to select both of them. And then by tabbing into edit mode, we can now deal with both of these objects together. So if we were to just simply select this object and we press Alt-X and we click on the axis we want to keep for symmetry, we see that it actually modifies both objects, which is an undesired result. Let's press Ctrl Z and actually undo that. Let's say that we actually want to only modify this object. If we press Alt-X, we see that whenever we click it, it still modifies this object up top. So if we were to press Alt-X and go to the drop down of mirror options, we see a new option called Symmetrize Only Selected Mesh. And by selecting this, we now are able to symmetrize just the mesh that we have selected. And so even though we have both of these meshes in edit mode, I'm now able to select just this mesh, press Alt-X, and we see the handler pop up, and we click the axis that we want to keep, and we see that we're able to symmetrize this to the other side, even though we could stand to have the gizmo be a little bit more accurately placed when it comes to this. But even when we click on the Z, we see that we're only symmetrizing this particular mesh that we have selected. So basically it's a way to just get a little bit more additional control whenever it comes to the symmetrized version of Alt-X.